Welcome to Healthy Minds in Ketchikan. We are here at the beautiful Creek Street where New York let us graciously host our show today. My name is Brittany Pope and I'm a licensed professional counselor in the community, and I will be your host today, joined by...
Hi, I'm Hannah Bayles. I am a Green Dot trainer and I'm also the administrative assistant at WISH.
So Green Dot, we're not talking about the color green, right? Where you just go around and paint things green, right?
No.
What is Green Dot training?
Green Dot is, the Green Dot comes from the idea of there being a map of your community, and anytime that someone intervenes or stops an act of violence, you put a green dot on the map, and we're trying to paint the town green. So kind of, but just a little more metaphorically.
Okay. So when you say paint the town green and someone supports someone, what are we supporting people with?
So everywhere in our community, there are acts of violence that are happening, either stalking, sexual assault, child abuse, domestic violence. And so Green Dot teaches bystander intervention, where we try to intervene and stop. And so we have several tools that we teach in our training on how to intervene in a healthy and a safe way for community members.
And so is it intervening in specific locations, or is it everywhere in the community? So it's not just in bars and restaurants, is it everywhere?
It is everywhere. So you're going to cater what type of intervention you provide depending on where you are. So it could be like bullying that's happening at an elementary school, or elder isolation. It could be the bars, or just if you're down on the docks and you're seeing two people getting into a heated argument. Safeway at the grocery store and there's a caregiver yelling at a child. So yeah, you see it all over and you cater the intervention depending on where you're at.
So tell us a little bit about your background and where you got the training at.
Okay.
And just how you came to this path of Green Dot.
Yes. So prior to working at WISH, I was a volunteer for a little over a year. I've done women's open mic nights and women's marches and some other things with WISH, but I attended Green Dot training, and it really opened my eyes to a vocabulary about intervention and violence prevention in our community. And I was very lucky, and WISH paid for me to go up to Anchorage to get the official training. And I've been able to provide community trainings. We do free community trainings, and also even with my friends, small dinner groups providing trainings. Yeah.
That's cool. So when you went up to Anchorage, tell us a little bit more about, was it a week-long training? What were the takeaways for you?
Yeah, so it was a week-long training, and I think the biggest takeaway for me was meeting people where they are. It's really important to understand that nothing disqualifies someone from being able to prevent violence in the community. It doesn't matter where you stand politically. It doesn't matter what circle you're in, whether you're in the church, you're in the schools, you're in first responders. No matter where people are, I can meet them there and I can figure out, where's your line in the sand? What is it that makes you uncomfortable? What type of violence makes you uncomfortable in this community, and how can I encourage you to step in?
So it sounds like we're helping people who can't necessarily in the moment help themselves. So are you intervening? Yes. Am I understanding that correctly? So you're intervening, like if you see someone yelling at someone at the grocery store and it feels unsafe.
Yeah.
How do you act? Because if it is unsafe, how do you intervene?
Right. So we have the 3 Ds. We have direct, which is a direct intervention. You're going to go and talk directly to them. And that doesn't mean that it has to be aggressive or confrontational. And then we have delegate, which means you could go get the store security and just let them know what's going on and ask them if they would be willing to step in. Or you could have distract, which would be to maybe spark up a conversation with the person and just ask them how their day's going, ask them about the weather, anything to kind of just disrupt the pattern would be a distract. So everyone has their own barriers. Some people are really shy. Some people have been raised in a community to believe that you're supposed to mind your own business and you don't get involved in anyone else's stuff. So we have barriers, but with the 3 Ds, the direct, delegate, and distract, you're able to kind of just figure what's most comfortable for you to step in.
Well, I like that you say that, because I think we also have our own boundaries with safety.
For sure.
So if you're not feeling safe enough to intervene in that moment, you could go and talk to a store manager or even a police officer.
Absolutely,
or
yeah.
That could help intervene in whether they feel safe or not.
Yes.
So that's a really, really good, I think, just to remind ourselves that we have our own boundaries.
For sure.
And we have our own safety. We also have our own stuff. So like, let's say you're being triggered by someone being yelled at in the grocery store.
For sure.
And you're not in a stable place where you can respond. Did they talk about like what you need to do for yourself before you're able to support other people?
Yes, absolutely. Everything in Green Dot is about, it's not about overcoming your barriers, it's about working around them. And so in like that situation, if you're in the grocery store and someone's yelling and you're being triggered by that, you could perform a delegate where you ask your friend, like, hey, can you go talk to the store manager? Because like this situation is making me really uncomfortable and it just doesn't seem safe. And so you can remove yourself. And it's definitely, your safety first. You need to protect yourself and your emotion and your mental health. But that's the nice thing, is that there are ways you can get really creative with scenarios on how to intervene.
Did they go over specific interventions that you could try? Did they give you examples, or does it really just depend on the situation?
During the training, we have a lot of scenarios and we keep it a very open discussion, so people are able to come up with their own ideas, and it's actually really fun to hear people's ideas, especially around distracting, because they're like, oh, I would drop my box of cereal, and you get to just have like really fun creative ideas. So we don't tell people, hey, this is exactly how you do it. We just encourage people to start a dialogue with themselves and with their community on ways that they can step in that's comfortable and safe.
Well, and when you say like distracting in the grocery store, I think of like, those big like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, like, that they do around like Super Bowl of just like knocking that over.
It is fun to play in your mind, like all the things that you can do. And I've heard things about like if you're at a party and like people like spilling their drink on accident, kind of a thing,
Sure.
anything to like disrupt a potential violent situation.
What started, so I know you mentioned kind of painting the map green and really getting this awareness spread throughout, our community and other communities. Where did Green Dot originate from? Like, what is the beginnings? Did they talk to you about that? Did someone go through an incident and develop this, or?
So I don't know the actual origin story of Green Dot, and I'm not going to say they didn't tell it to me.
Okay. You probably had a lot during that week.
It was
training.
A very, very intense training, yeah. We talk about violence or acts of violence as red dots. So it's putting, anytime an act of violence happens, it's putting a red dot on the map of our community. And we're trying to cover that up, not to like say it didn't happen, but we're intervening and put a green dot, and then eventually also doing proactive green dots, which is just having conversations with your community members about preventing violence, so that way you're being proactive and you're creating spaces that violence isn't welcome at all.
Right. So I like the idea of like coping ahead, being proactive.
Absolutely,
That's a lot of the times what we talk about in therapy is how do we cope ahead for anxiety? How do we cope ahead for stressful situations?
Yeah.
And so it's essentially, it sounds like a proactive way to really make the community supportive.
Yes.
Have you trained any unique like occupations? Like, have you done this with the police officers? Have you done this with any sort of professions in the community that?
Not specifically any businesses or occupations yet. That's something we're working on. So if anyone is interested, I mean, I'll get to the plugging how to get involved later.
Okay.
But yeah, we have been reaching out. We really want to get involved in some of the religious organizations in town and first responders for sure. I do believe the fire department may have done one.
Oh, great.
Yeah, but we're trying to reach out, especially to the seasonal community. One of my favorite questions is, if someone was to join your group or to join your church or come to your workplace, how would they know that you don't accept violence in your community? That's one of my favorite prompting questions to get people thinking about this.
Yeah, to kind of get them opening the door. And I could see this also being something really important for the social community, like the bars and restaurants in our community, where you leave your drink on a table and you see, maybe if you see something like where someone's being drugged or someone's being not treated well.
Yeah.
So I could see this being a really cool thing to even do on that level, like attracting that certain profession of waitresses.
For sure.
Because sometimes it happens even in the workplace.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
Where violence happens, where you feel safe and then something happens in the workplace.
Yeah.
So is Wish as an organization trying to reach out, or are you as a trainer trying to reach out?
Wish is an organization.
Okay.
IROC, which is Wish's prevention department,
Right.
prevention and education department. I was just a volunteer, and now that I'm working there, I get to work even more closely, which is really amazing.
Yeah.
But yes, we are reaching out to people in the community, trying to get trainings in businesses, and also we provide just open, free, with a free lunch, community trainings, and yeah, it's a free training. There will be a free lunch. It's a really great place for people to come and connect and meet and learn really good tools. And we also cater how long our trainings are, depending on how much time businesses have for us. So
Sure.
if it's a business and you only have 2 hours for us to come in and train, we absolutely can fit it in.
That's great to know that local resource is there, because a lot of times you think of Wish just as a shelter that helps people.
For sure.
And not necessarily in the sense of helping trained professionals.
Yeah.
And I know at my workplace, we did the strangulation training, and that was so helpful.
Yeah.
You know, just even that act of violence and recognizing when a client's been strangled and that they need to go to the hospital. So
For sure.
just thinking outside of the box in ways that workplaces can support themselves, their employees,
Yeah.
and the clients that they serve, or the community that
Yeah.
they serve.
Yeah.
So that's a really great example of collaboration between agencies coming to the table to
Yeah.
create this safe culture.
Yeah, and you can empower your employees to feel more comfortable. I think a lot about these seasonal jobs where people are either like stuck up on a zip line course or stuck out on a boat, and they could have, you know, customers who are behaving in a way that's really unsafe or making people uncomfortable, and it's really nice for them to get empowered with tools and vocabulary to be able to intervene. And yeah.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I think you mentioned a really important word is vocabulary. Because if we're speaking the same language and we really
Absolutely.
understand, like, you know, the mental health first aid that KW Ketchikan Wellness Coalition, who is also a sponsor of this, puts on, is let's stomp the stigma of hiding these violences. Let's stomp the stigma of hiding mental health, and let's have a common language
Yes.
to support one another.
Yeah.
So I like that, and let's have tools to be able to do that.
Right. Yeah. When I go out with my friends, anytime we're going to go out, we always like have a prep talk. We're like, okay, these are the things we're going to be looking for, especially when we're going out to the bars. But it's really nice because we have little hand signals, and we'll be able to like point people out as like, this person is like making us a little uncomfortable, potential red dot, like, so we need to, like, a potential act of violence could be happening. So we just get to be on guard, and we can communicate, and we can be like on completely opposite sides of a room, and because we have that shared vocabulary.
What about if someone is let's say someone is a red dot, is violent, and let's say, you know, how do you bring them to the green dot? I guess.
Right.
Is that a good way to ask that? I mean, how do you?
Yeah, I need to I'm trying to remind myself to be more careful, is that people themselves are not red dots.
Okay.
Which is how I did lead it that way. But the act of
action,
violence would be the red dot, because people are very, you know, complex. Yeah, that's something that I learned a lot about meeting people where they are. I think there are a lot of people who really don't want violence to be happening, and I also think there are people in the community who don't understand that maybe their behaviors are violent.
Right.
If it's something you grow up with and it's become a part of your upbringing and your culture, it might be hard to recognize. And we do go over a lot of signs and symptoms of violence at the Green Dot training. So I think calling out your friends and like calling them in and encouraging them to come to these things is really important. So if you have people in your life that you know have had some troubling behaviors, you know, encourage them to come to Green Dots, go with them, like bring them in.
So it's again community. It's
Community.
not labeling. It's not.
Yep.
It's community. It's how do we support one another, even the people that may not understand that it feels unsafe.
Yeah.
When you say violence, can you define what Green Dot views that as? Like examples?
Yeah, so it would be the domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, child abuse, bullying.
Okay.
It could also, you know, it can be elder abuse.
Sure.
There's a lot that falls under it, and the signs and symptoms get kind of, you know, complex and heavy. And we go about it in a really careful way, and we give people a lot of room to like be able to handle that. And we give plenty of warnings and give people the opportunity to take breaks if they need to, because some of that can be a little
Sure.
overwhelming.
Do you guys provide, like, so let's say you do intervene in the person who is getting the violence towards them. Do you guys have resources at Wish that you provide them with, or do you guys give them like a list of therapists and say, you know, what's the follow-up, I guess? Is there any...
I think it really depends on what the situation is. There have been times that I've been out at the bar and intervened in a situation where someone was becoming really aggressive with the person they showed up with, and through the intervention, both people end up leaving, and they're not really interested in talking to anyone, but the situation was ended. The violence was ended in the moment, and so it's hard to follow up. I do what I can to like reach out to family members if I know who they are and say like, hey, like, you know, I saw this thing happen, I'm worried, like, let me know if there's anything that we can do. I think it would depend on the situation.
Okay. Do you guys, in your training, is there a training for like your clients that you work with? Is this an optional training for them?
Yeah, it's welcome to all community members.
Awesome.
Yep.
So not just like professionals and other community members, but the people that you guys even serve.
Oh, for
or
sure.
that agencies serve that
Yep.
receive services.
Yeah.
Or, you know. Okay, awesome.
Yeah. We are only able to, right now, train people who are 18 years or older.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, and then we're working on getting to the point where we're able to train youth too.
The youth training.
Yeah.
And what's the difference in the youth training and the adult training?
That I'm not totally sure about. I know some of the vocabulary is catered differently, and it is set up to be taught in a school system.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you can incorporate it into the school district.
Yeah, and
Which
it is
so
definitely
needed.
a goal of ours.
It's
Yeah.
so needed, I think, with all that, you know, our community has been through.
Yeah.
It's definitely something I think that could really be beneficial for
Yeah.
students to learn at a young age. What does healthy relationships look like?
Right.
What does modeling the green dot philosophy look like? How do you support one another?
Yeah.
What is your favorite thing that you have done so far with the green dot training?
I think one of my favorite things I've done was I had the opportunity to do a really small 3-hour dinner training with some of my friends. And it was a way to like, we were able to have a little bit more intimate conversation and be a little bit more real with each other, and people felt more comfortable being open than like in a group setting, even though the community training we keep it very open and like allow for people to speak.
Yeah.
But I think that was one of my favorite things, and I really want to do more of those.
Yeah, so like a personal, intimate, like here's the green dot philosophy, here's what's going on.
Because I'm sharing it with the people in
Yeah.
my life who I care about.
Well, then you can speak common language, like you just said. You know, we're all at a bar, we're at a restaurant, and we all know like the common language in that. Do you feel like you have personal investment in this? Like, what for you drives you personally? Because obviously, doing all these with your friends and then being devoted to work with it.
Right.
What drives you personally for this?
That is a really good question.
Okay.
I would have to say one would be my values of self-love and community accountability. I grew up a military brat, so I was all over the place, and community was something I was always missing in my life. And moving to Ketchikan, I felt very welcomed really quickly, but there were still some kinks that needed to be worked out in the community. So being a woman, there are definitely some oppressions that I face that other people may not. And then also, I also come from a place of extreme privilege too. So I try to just be open to meeting people where they are and like being a good ally. And I just want everyone in this community to feel safe.
And you mentioned something specific about women. I think women have typically been targeted like in the news, and anything you see as potential for violence, more higher risk than men.
For sure.
Does this program incorporate everybody?
It's so inclusive. That is one of my favorite things about this program, is that we do our best to make it known that violence is happening to everyone. And this can be like two male friends and like some kind of hazing or bullying like that needs to be intervened in. So we do our best to be inclusive, using pronouns. One of my favorite things is to tell stories, it's like scenarios, but to tell them genderless, because then it really gets people thinking, and people become aware of like what their automatic assumptions are. And there are statistics to support that women face more violence, for sure, especially in Alaska. It's very dangerous. But we do our best to not discount the violence that are being perpetrated towards men and non-binary people and children as well.
Great. So it's really an inclusive, community-based, all are welcome training.
Yep.
So it sounds like we're going to also get to talk to someone who maybe was in your small group training.
So this person
Or did
actually
this
did the
person go-
first training with me when I was
Ah.
just a community member doing
Okay.
this. And so,
Cool.
yeah, he has been involved in Green Dot as long as I have, and it's been really cool to watch him grow, and he is a part of my close community. So,
Okay, awesome. So we're going to hear from him and how that really supports his community and his perspective.
yeah. Hey, we're here with Hamish Struthers, and you are Harbor Master Port Security.
Yes, yes.
And a friend, and
Oh, yes.
we went to our Green Dot training together, so we were both introduced to it at the same time.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it was amazing.
Yeah, so I'm curious, do you feel that the Green Dot training was helpful for you?
It was extremely helpful for me. I learned a lot, and I realized that the bystander effect is a real thing, and I was part of it, and the training helped me out a lot in kind of fighting my way through that, and you know, just helping out the community in ways I never thought to do before, or you know, get past those passive tendencies that I had in the past. So.
For sure, yeah. So I'm curious, how has the Green Dot, we have the 3Ds, we have direct, delegate, and distract. How have those changed the way that you engage the community, say when you're out with friends or out at the bar?
Well, I'd say the direct aspect of it is probably the thing that I've implemented the most as far as intervening when situations start arising. Typically, if things such as that happen, there's a lot of it that happened down on the docks here, and also at the bars, areas like that. You know, anywhere where alcohol is being consumed. That can be quite an issue, and I found that just being direct in those kind of situations especially is typically what works best for me, and learning about that at the training really helped me out with that.
Yeah, and so I have the inside scoop because we share inner circles. Have you found it's been easier to talk about with people who haven't gone to Green Dot, like your friends out and about? Have you been able to implement the vocabulary with them?
Yeah, actually, you know, it's a work in progress, but it's kind of something that I've slowly just added into my routine and just who I am as a person, and I think it kind of leaches off on others around me, and I feel like just showing that you care and that anyone can make a difference when something serious is happening. I feel like that alone has really helped out a lot, and also my inner circle. I've had a lot of talks with my closest friends, and I'm kind of ready to start branching off even more, but and probably go to 1 or 2 more Green Dot trainings just to really drill it in.
Get a refresher.
Yeah, it's been great so far, and it's been cool seeing it put to use, especially down in a place where you see 10,000+ people a day.
Right.
So there's a lot of variables and things that can happen down here. So just having that training and just a little bit of extra help has really been wonderful for me.
Yeah, so not only are you implementing it when you're with your friends, but you're also able to use it at work, which is really cool. It's very versatile. And would you say, I think so, but would you agree that it is for everyone in the community?
It is. It really is. And I personally think it's something that should be mandatory. Just kidding. But it helped me out so immensely, and it was put to use almost instantly after the training that it's just hard to think of a world without it and without that help. So I highly recommend anyone who's even slightly dealt with anything in that facet, try it out, because it's just helped me so much.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the 3Ds.
We'll have to get you in for a refresher training, but thank you so much for coming and talking to us today.
Yeah, of course, and it's good to be here, and I'm just getting off work, so the tourists are almost gone, and I can go home and rest for a minute.
Yes, awesome. Right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time, and this has been really educational for me, and I hope for you viewers, you really contact them at Wish. So that's a good, I think, way to end. How do we contact you guys?
Yes, so if you are interested in this training or in volunteering or anything else, have more questions, you can email me at info@wishak.org, or you could call me at 228-4083.
So we have Hannah Bayles here from Wish, and also a certified Green Dot trainer. I'm Brittany Pope, licensed professional counselor, and this was your Healthy Minds. Thanks for joining us today, and be well.